at John Martin Talks. But I'm a fish whisperer of sorts, make fishing great again, and I intend to do that this weekend. I hope you have as good a time as I'm hoping to have. Got a great show for you today. We're going to start off with one of the twats. Yes, the Twitter twats, I call them. Ilion Omar. Now, I know people call him the squad, but I'm not politically correct. I really believe that the Twitter twats actually describes them a little bit better than the squad. But she's come about. She's blasting, of all people, Joe Biden. She's blasting him because Joe Biden administration, I don't know if Joe's even aware of it or not, they're talking about rebuilding the wall. They're talking about rebooting Donald Trump's wall, and she is fit to be tied. We'll get into that. And then kind of an update on what we talked about yesterday. By the way, if you want to see our podcast, the best way is go directly to YouTube, John Martin Talks, spell it all the way out. You can also have John Martin Talks on Facebook. But we talked about Biden's gun control decrees that were coming out Thursday afternoon and his executive orders. Well, they're officially out now. He did his little show and dance, and I tell you, the results of it could be a bit scary if you happen to own any of these items that he's about to ban or is in the process of banning, because you literally could become a felon overnight, and we'll expand upon that. But before we go any further, I always have to talk about our sponsor, our chief sponsor, and boy, do we need people like BDU, Big Daddy Unlimited, now more than ever. They are your Second Amendment headquarters, and I call them that because not only can you get guns and ammunition delivered to your door at factory direct pricing, but over 100,000 items related to the Second Amendment, such as tactical gear, survival gear. They are your Second Amendment headquarters because they defend your Second Amendment literally on a daily basis, which is one of the reasons why they sponsor a show like ours. Our sponsors, if you want to find them, the easiest way to do it is look above the video, no matter when or where you're watching it. You'll see a description of the show. You will see links to our various sponsors. Big Daddy Unlimited is the number one. We have Patriot Threads, patriotthreads.org, apparel with a purpose. They make some outstanding patriotic apparel. They are what you call a total fulfillment center, which means they can design and produce shirts for your charity events and even help you with dispersing the funds of your choice to go wherever you choose. Remember the initials of our show, John Martin Talks, in other words, JMT, and you get 20% off. Recoil TV, I got to mention them. They have their own YouTube channel with probably 100,000 or more followers on it. We are honored to have a channel within their channel where our show is archived. But Recoil TV is also all about the Second Amendment, producing high-quality videos on the latest products that are out there, demonstrating how to use them. You can't go wrong. Check out Recoil TV. All right, let's get into, as I say, the meat and potatoes of the show. This first article is from Business Insider. Representative Ilhan Omar slams Biden's shameful, her words, not mine, plan to restart construction on Trump's xenophobic and racist wall. Xenophobic and racist wall. So the wall, of course, there's Miss Omar. She's like one of the main twats, as I say. But Representative Ilhan Omar has criticized President Joe Biden for continuing the construction of Donald Trump's xenophobic and racist southern border wall. In other words, the Mexican border. Now, they hadn't actually done anything, and you'll see that as we talk, but they're talking about getting it started again. And let me just tell you, ladies and gentlemen, why would you build a wall? Because walls work. They're not xenophobic. They're not racist. They're walls. Now, I guess if you climb over, under, or go through the wall, what does that make you? Well, it used to make you an illegal alien and a criminal. Of course, with the Democrats, we can't even say that there's a surge down there because Ocasio-Cortez is telling us that is like Nazism in language. But the walls work. Look at the Capitol fence. I mean, Ilhan Omar and her ilk put walls around the Capitol. Why did they do that? Who are they trying to keep out? Probably old nasty white Trump supporters. But I got news for you, Ilhan. There are a lot of people who supported Donald Trump of all races, creed, and colors. And in fact, Donald Trump got the most African American votes, especially men, than any Republican in history. So, but they're putting up a fence around it, right? So they feel unsafe, and they're putting a fence, and they're putting armed people behind it, the National Guard troops. But yet building a wall to defend our actual border is racist and xenophobic. This is what she said. This is what Miss Omar said on Twitter. She said it's shameful and unacceptable for @POTUS, that'd be Mr. And it does my heart no good to say this, Mr. Biden. It's shameful and unacceptable for @POTUS to continue this construction of Trump's xenophobic and racist wall. But keep in mind, when you listen to Miss Omar, you have to remember that not too long ago, she actually said this.
Was founded after 9/11 because they recognized that some people did something and that all of us were starting to lose access to our civil liberties.
Now growing backlash.
Somebody did something. She's talking about 9/11, for God's sakes. Now, she was in a refugee camp, I think, in Africa at the time. She's been rescued by the United States of America, a country that she bashes at every single moment. But here she is in that talking about somebody did something somewhere, and she's talking about 9/11. Now, let me just tell you, you ever heard the saying, if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's a duck? Well, if it walks like a terrorist, talks like a terrorist, supports terrorists, and is supported by said terrorists, then what is it? It's a duck, I guess. But Omar, I say that, and I know Mr. Algorithm and all. I know I'm not supposed to say these kind of things. But one thing about it, like my friend Craig at patriotthreads.org says, the truth starts now. So if you're looking for political correctness, you're in the wrong place, because we're determined to stay in the market square, but we're not going to cower down to do it. But Omar is essentially, like I said, walks like a duck, quacks like a duck. It's a duck. Omar supports terrorist organization. She supports Hamas. She, at the beginning of that video, it kind of got cut out. She's talking about CARE was founded after 9/11, the Council for Islamic American Relations, something like that. Well, CARE was founded by Hamas, the terrorists over in Lebanon. And she supports them. And they have donated to her campaign through Hamas. So if you support terrorists and you are supported by terrorists, it doesn't take much to figure out that you might be the T word. I don't know. I'm just saying. You tell me where I'm wrong. Biden had previously pledged, Mr. Biden, previously pledged not to build another foot of wall during his presidency. Well, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of people don't seem to know this, but the Democrats have always been in favor of the wall. They've always, going all the way back to the Clinton era, they got funding for the wall. Obama had funding for the wall. Both the Bushes had funding for the wall. Hillary Clinton was actually for the wall until Trump derangement syndrome set in. And now everybody, when people started chanting, build that wall, build that wall. They've been in favor of the wall, Democrats, for the whole time. It's TDS that is Trump derangement syndrome that has actually made them oppose the wall. And of course, Donald Trump stepped up construction and focus on the wall. But this idea that Democrats are all of a sudden, maybe just now, realizing that we need a wall is simply not true. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, I hope I'm saying that name right, reportedly told colleagues that while the White House had frozen spending for the wall project, see, they haven't stopped it, they've just frozen it, that leaves room to make decisions as part of the administration, in particular, areas of the wall that need renovation, particular projects that need to be finished. Well, the whole thing needs to be finished, right? Now, there are some parts of the wall that are impractical. And Donald Trump always talked about how we might use surveillance and stuff and everything. There's not going to be 1,200 miles of wall. There's going to be some parts that are inaccessible, don't make sense to build a wall. And also he had Mexico with the stay-at-home policy. They had troops. People bashed Donald Trump for saying Mexico's going to pay for the wall. Well, he got Mexico to put their federal troops up on the border. How much you think that cost? And being a human wall. So Donald Trump, promises made, promises kept. Did he do everything he needed to do? Maybe not, but he dadgum sure tried his best. But the White House, let me tell you why the White House is in favor of putting up a wall again. It's not because they want to stop the racist surge, as Ocasio-Cortez calls it. They just don't like the images. They're afraid of the images. If the press wouldn't cover it, if they could do it under cover of darkness, they would let everybody come in here. They made promises, did they not? During the 2020 campaign and the primary, they basically said, and I've played the video many, many times. We're not going to play it again right now, but I've played it where they said that they were all in favor of decriminalizing coming into the United States. So in other words, open door policy. And they were all in favor of giving free medical care to illegal immigrants. Do you see where New York State now, under Cuomo's guidance for however long he lasts, has actually come out now and said that they're going to give essentially between $16,000 and $20,000 per illegal immigrant in stimulus funds coming into, I guess that's part of the COVID package. So they're actually paying people to come to New York. No wonder why New Yorkers that can are voting with their feet and heading to places like the free state of Florida. And I welcome you, by the way, but just keep this in mind, whether you're moving to Texas or somewhere else, Wyoming, if you're going from California, whatever you're running from in California, New York, and Massachusetts, Chicago, whatever it is you're running from, don't bring it with you. That's all I ask. But the White House is afraid of images like these border. I don't know if we put it up before, but they're afraid of the images of seeing people just bum rushing the border. Realize just this past week, there were videos that came out that showed people drowning in the Rio Grande, showed a cartel guy just dropping a baby into the water because he knew that the Border Patrol would come. It showed people dumping kids over like a 12-foot or higher wall just right to the ground. And we've heard from Texas that says that the kids containment facility in San Antonio, there are accusations of child abuse, people going hungry, COVID, children that are positive for COVID literally laying on top of children that are not. It is nasty down there at the border, and the White House is afraid of the images. They're not wanting to change their policy. They just are afraid of what you're seeing. And I guess the mainstream media is covering it just enough to make them nervous. But they haven't had a change of heart. They just are worried about what the American people are going to think. Mayorkas, not to be outdone here, he said that gates, talking about the wall, and parts of the wall where technology, as I was talking about earlier, had not yet been installed could still be built. The Washington Times reported the Department of Homeland Security did not respond to Business Insider's request for comment on Wednesday. Well, the bottom line is, ladies and gentlemen, walls work. They work. I mean, that's why the Chinese built a big one a few decades ago, actually a few centuries ago, because walls work. They absolutely do. President Biden froze federal funding. Listen to this. And this is how they trick you a little bit. President Biden froze federal funding for wall construction on his first day in office, made a big splash, right? And issued a 60-day moratorium in which he instructed officials to find a legal way to divert billions of dollars in funding that had been allocated for the wall, and a deadline which has since passed. So that 60 days has passed. Now, is that by design? I don't know. One thing, and I haven't talked about this in a while, of course, if I say it, it bears repeating, and you'll hear presidents say this all the time, both sides of the aisle. I don't know if President Trump ever said it or not, but I just want to give you a little tidbit. It's one of these points in the show sometimes where I say, if you don't get anything else, get this. Whenever a president tells you they have a 10-year plan, then you can ring the BS birdie right then. Because there's no such thing as a 10-year plan. A 10-year plan means we're going to leave it, kick the can down the road. Because even the best of presidents only get 2 terms now, right? So there's no such thing as a 10-year plan. So when you hear somebody either running for president or actually is president, telling you they have a 10-year plan, man, don't turn your back on them, man, because they're going to grab your wallet and everything else, because they're absolutely going to stick it to you. But this deadline has passed. So I got a question I've been kind of asking for the last few days now. Where's Kamala? Where is Kamala Harris? Isn't she supposed to be the border czar? Where is she, by the way? Where is she? Well, we know where she is right now. She's happier than a want something and something else. She's finally got her, secondary White House, the Naval Observatory, where they've been remodeling, and she's been living out of a suitcase, so to say, in another mansion. She's actually just now been able to move, literally today, into the permanent residence of the Vice President of the United States. And I wonder, you think she's come in contact with any illegals trimming the hedges or putting up with her? But now that she's moved into her official residence, she can go to the border wall. She didn't have nothing else to do. She can go to the border wall. But I don't think she's too interested in that. I've been playing this, but I don't think you can play it enough. This is Kamala Harris' response when asked by a reporter in the great city of Jacksonville, Florida, about whether or not she's going to the border. Listen to her response.
Plans to visit the border?
Not today. But I have before, and I'm
Oh
sure I
my
will
God,
again.
man. Every time I play that video or others, what is it with that cackle, man? What is it with that? That thing creeps me out every time I hear it. Is she truly the Wicked Witch of the West? I mean, I guess it's some kind of nervous tick, man. But she has no intention of going to the border. Now, she might end up going down there eventually. Of course, she was down there when Trump was president. She was up on a hill with binoculars calling him everything but a child of God and saying that, we could not let this stand. And, of course, Ocasio-Cortez, the other queen of the Twitter twats, was down there crying. Well, it's worse now than it ever was. Biden's best day is worse than Donald Trump's worst day right now. But crickets, man. But she said, and I keep going back to something that talking about Kamala Harris, that her basically her spokesperson, her press secretary said when asked about is Kamala going to the border this week, said, "Oh, she's not doing the border." I mean, she's not doing the border. She got shopping to do, man. All right, we're going to move along here and quote Miss Jen Psaki. Now, am I saying that right? I'm trying to get better with Jen Psaki. Like one of my listeners, because I have trouble with some of these names. There's not a lot of Sakis in Hawthorne, but they said that it's pronounced like Japanese sake. So I know a little something about something. Sake, I had some in the past, in the distant past. But Jen Psaki said, and hope I'm getting it right, wall construction remains paused to the extent permitted by law. So she is the queen of doublespeak, man. Circleback gal, I call her. So some has already been funded through a congressional authorization and funding allocation. But as agencies develop for a plan, it's paused while agencies are developing a plan for the president on the management of the federal funds. What does all that mean? I don't know what it means, but I got a radical idea for you. I want to propose Miss Jen Psaki and let Kamala off the hook and Joe Biden make him look good. I've got a very radical idea, but it's going to require something of the Democrats that, I don't know if they're capable of. Listen to this. I think we got another video for you.
Have to now decide whether they will continue defrauding the public with ridiculous bullshit.
There you go, right there. President Trump, man, he gets the spot on award. It would take the Democrats to decide that they're fed up and not going to do any more ridiculous BS. Now, who would you bet on? And oh, by the way, yes, Mr. President, many of us miss you greatly, sir. But my radical idea is let's put Trump in charge. Let's make him the border czar. Why don't they do that? Because he had the border. I don't know if it was under control, but it looked like paradise compared to what's down there now. So put Trump. They need to decide if they're going to do away with ridiculous BS and make Trump the border czar. They'll never do it, but it would solve the problem. And that might get Kamala off the couch because, it's not off the hook because she's famous for being on the couch. And those of you who have followed her career know what I'm talking about. But let me just ask you this, ladies and gentlemen. How much are we going to put up with? How much are the American people going to put up with when they see what's happening at the border? There's no one who could take even a modest look at what is happening down at our southern border and not be alarmed or concerned unless you're for the total destruction of the United States of America. Then it kind of makes sense because, having an open border and a welfare policy will destroy this country or any other country for that matter. I just want to reiterate something I've been saying recently and if you're new to the show, listen up on this because it kind of describes what I'm all about. Of course, I'm battling ignorance and apathy daily, but my sole political goal is to stop the progressive takeover of this country. Stop it, or at least try to slow it down. And I don't care if you're running for the outhouse, the doghouse, or the White House. That's how I'm going to judge you. It may not be fair, but it's the reality that I'm living in right now because I think it's that desperate a time right now. So when I look at the Democrats, and I'm not saying all Democratic voters, but the Democratic Party is destroyed. It's gone. The party of JFK that asks not what you can do for your country or not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country, that party is DOA. It doesn't exist anymore. And all you have left now is what's in it for me. What's in it for me? And the progressives are destroying this nation. So if you want to know where I'm coming from, politically, that's my only real goal. Stop the progressive takeover of this nation. And because they're destroying us. They are literally destroying us. All right, we're going to move along now. We're going to get into a story from the Washington Free Beacon. And this is pretty much an update on what we talked about yesterday. We told you that Thursday afternoon, Joe Biden was scheduled to do a bunch of executive orders on gun safety to make us safer, to make us feel. I mean, if you're living in Chicago and children are literally getting shot in your front doorstep, are you feeling a lot better now that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are in charge and that Chuck Schumer is running the show in Congress, he and Nancy Pelosi? Doesn't that just like warm the cockles of your heart? Really? Not so much for me. But Biden pretty much followed through and then some with his executive order. So we talked about it yesterday. Now I'm going to update you on what really happened and what the potential of this to affect your life directly if you are a gun owner. You better listen up. From the Washington Free Beacon, Biden's executive actions could turn millions, and we're talking about Americans, into felons. Perp walk. You may come home one day and find that you actually have been arrested. It's not that far-fetched when you think about it, because if you look at what happened to the McCloskeys out in St. Louis, they're the people that were out defending their home with an AR-15 and I think her with a .38 snub nose. The police never showed up until about 2 weeks later, and Billy Bob tells me they showed up to make arrests, but it wasn't the protesters that threatened to kill the McCloskeys and their dog and burn their house down. They were there, the police were there to arrest the McCloskeys. They've been charged. I don't know what's happening with that case, but they were charged when they had legally acquired firearms on their own property defending their home. And then, of course, you go out and look at what happened to the district attorney out in L.A., and we've played that before, where, and there happened to be black, I'm just saying, just showing you that it don't really matter what color you are. When the Black Lives Matter group came to their house, and the retired police officer, this lady's husband, I can't think of their name at the top of my head right now, actually came out and greeted them with a pretty big pistol and said, "Yes, I will. You gonna shoot me?" That Black Lives Matter gal said. He said, "I will shoot you if you don't get off this porch," defending their home. And they've been charged with crimes. So if you think about it, ladies and gentlemen, in America now, in Biden's America, you can be charged with a crime for simply defending your home. And I'll tell you, this to me is beyond the Second Amendment. I've been saying this, but if I say it, it bears repeating, that of course, the Constitution through the Second Amendment, inalienable rights, which means God-given rights, The Constitution is not to empower government, by the way. It is to protect the individual from government. That's really the crux of our Constitution. But the Second Amendment allows you to defend yourself. It's not about hunting, by the way. The Second Amendment has zero to do with squirrel or deer hunting. And like Cuomo said, how many people need 10 shots to kill a deer? The Second Amendment is to, on the one hand, to form a militia to defend your state, the Minutemen, so to speak. But the crux of it is to defend yourself and your family and your person from people who are trying to take your life, your liberty, and the pursuit, not guarantee of happiness. I say all that to say that to me, defending your home like the McCloskeys were doing is beyond just a Second Amendment right, a God-given right. I would declare it a basic human right, no matter where you are. I believe that as a human being, you have the right to defend yourself, your family, and your property. I don't care where you are. Now, I know in some countries you can't do that, which is why people are trying to come to America. And I understand it, man. But, right now in America, Joe Biden just signed some decrees that essentially makes you a legal gun owner one day and a felon that can be arrested the next. And I am not exaggerating. We'll get into it more here. President Biden issued sweeping executive orders on Thursday restricting access to popular firearms, a move that could turn millions of Americans into felons overnight. So you could go from, having a happy home, maybe watching JMT when you get home, to meeting the bend over guy. There's some movies I've referenced in here. You ever seen that Chevy Chase movie where he goes into jail and he says, "Hey, my name's what I can't even think of the character's name. Fletch. The Fletch movies. My name's Fletch." And the guy, Randall Tex Cobb, says, "Bend over." And Chevy Chase says, "Nice to meet you, Ben." So you might meet Bend over. We used to play those videos, but we don't have copyright to them. Or you could be as Chris Rock, to be an equal opportunity offender here. Remember Chris Rock talked about going into prison and meeting the toss salad man? We gonna toss your salad. But so you could be, happy, joyous, and free and pursuing life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And the next minute, tossing your salad would bend over. I don't know. Is that, ladies and gentlemen, I want to ask the people that did not vote for Donald Trump, the people that voted for Joe Biden, is that what you voted for? Did you vote to become a felon? Because it doesn't matter what party you're a member of, if you own any of these weapons or accessories, you literally are a felon right now. Did you know that? I mean, you are. In a series of executive actions, Biden directed the Department of Justice to propose rule changes that would regulate unfinished gun parts as completed guns. They call them ghost guns, where you actually order the parts and assemble them separately. And apparently that's a big thing. Now, as I talked about yesterday, and I'm not saying it's not true, but is there any evidence that people ordering these ghost guns and putting them together are actually committing crimes with them? I'm not saying they're not, but I'd like to see the evidence, because they put it out. This is a solution to crime. He also told the agency to change the rules around the AR-15 pistol brace device. So basically helping you to stabilize and shoot better. Specialty slings. So if you own an AR-15 brace device, pistol brace device, specialty slings that replace standard shoulder stocks, which could potentially outlaw once legal guns. So if you own any of those right now, Joe Biden just made you potentially a felon. You might want to start looking over your shoulder. The rule changes had the potential to turn millions of gun owners into felons. Well, the good news, there's good news there. You get to be a felon, and Biden will still let you vote. So, it's okay. Good news. I always like to get some good news. You'll be able to vote. But Biden went on to say about his decrees today, his executive orders. He said this is an epidemic for God's sakes, he said. It has to stop. So apparently, he has solved the gun violence. Now keep in mind, about 30,000, so to speak, of the gun violence people that died of gun violence took their own life. That's all. We never talk about that much. But he is talking about this being that it has to stop. It's an epidemic. Biden, let me just tell you this about Biden. All these Democrats, man, they are such hypocrites. I mean, from Obama talking about global warming while buying a house on the beach for $15 million, while Google, talks about climate change, spent over $1 billion upgrading their facilities right on San Francisco Bay. I mean, if Google, which is of the devil, by the way, if Google and Obama really believed that global warming was imminent, why didn't Obama build his house in Omaha, Nebraska? Why didn't Google go to St. Louis or something? I don't know. But Biden, he talk about being a hypocrite. But keep in mind, he's been in politics for 50 years now. 50 years. Biden has been surrounded by armed protection literally his entire adult life. He has had from Capitol Police to the Secret Service his entire adult life. But you, not so much. Remember what the commissioner in Minneapolis said after the George Floyd case when they were burning it down? She was on a radio station, and they asked her, a caller called in and said, well, what about if I call the police? Because they were talking about defunding and completely doing away the police department at that time. She said, what if our home is getting invaded at 3 o'clock in the morning? And the city councilwoman, who was white herself, and you'll understand why I make that point, said to this caller, ask her about her race. And she identified as a white woman. And she said that if you expect, and I'm paraphrasing, the city commissioner literally said, if you expect the police to come to your house when you're being home invaded now at 3 o'clock in the morning, then that is a sign that you have white privilege. So your expectation that the cops will actually come is white privilege. I think it's American privilege myself, but but Biden's been surrounded by protection his whole life, but he doesn't want you. He even, think about this. This is how crazy hypocritical this is. It's come out now that Biden even used the Secret Service when he didn't even have a Secret Service detail anymore to cover for his son's illegal gun purchase. Yeah, check it out. It's true. It's crazy, but it's true. But don't expect Hunter Biden to be doing anytime soon. And the reason I don't talk about those stories too much is because, I want to see the true perps take the walk. I don't want to see you take the walk for being a legal gun owner one day and illegal the next. But I want to see the perp walks, but I'll believe it when I see it. Because right now, and I hope I'm wrong, I don't think Hunter Biden is going to see one day of jail time. I just don't. Because the rats don't like to convict the rats. And there are plenty of rats on both sides of the aisle. Tell me when I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong, man. I really do. Check my time. We're doing okay. The moves, back to Biden's thing here, the moves face swift backlash. And I got to tell you, I'm about to read something. This stuff, these next couple of paragraphs, and I'll expand on it in a minute as to why, but they kind of piss me off. I don't like it. It pisses me, and you'll understand. Hang in there with me. Hopefully I'll make good sense as to why. The moves faced a swift backlash, talking about King Joe's decrees, from gun rights advocates and industry groups. The group that represents pistol brace makers told the Washington Free Beacon Biden will face legal and electoral consequences if he goes through with attempting to ban the popular devices. That was from Travis Stevens White. He's in charge of Firearms Regulatory Accountability Coalition. I got to admit up front, I don't know anything about them. I say that up front. And that sounds good, does it not? Let me read that again a little bit because I botched it up. He says, this man says that Biden will face legal and electoral consequences if he goes through with attempting to ban the popular device. So he's already doing it, right? But it sounds good. That sounds good that they're going to take legal action. He's going to face electoral consequences. But what exactly does that mean? They're going to sue Biden, which is the federal government, that kind of thing. And I'm all for that. Electoral consequences? What electoral consequences? I mean, I'm not saying, because we don't say the F word here. We say mod instead of something else that rhymes with it. We don't talk about stopping the S thing. We talk about the squeal because we're trying to maintain, trying to get the message out and be on Facebook and stuff at the same time and YouTube. We're under the gun, by the way. A lot of people on the right are. in the right, I should say, are. And we need your help. Not only support our sponsors, but support our show by appreciate how much you're watching it. We're growing all the time. Spread the news far and wide because, algorithm and those guys are tough sons of guns. But it sounds good. They're going to fight. They're going to fight. I'll expand upon that in a minute. Travis Stevens White, the group's president, said, and he's a Firearm Regulatory Accountable Coalition. Like I say, I don't know him. The Biden administration, this is what he said, must be unaware that the Congressional Research Service cited estimates of 10 to 40 million pistol braces in circulation. So between 10 and 40 million people that own them legally may be felons before the night is through. He said, this guy said, aside from obvious legal problems, if the Biden administration is prepared to issue an administrative edict that has the potential to impact that number of gun-owning Americans, then they also need to be prepared to deal with the electoral consequences. I got to take a little drink here. I'm John Martin, not Dean Martin. It's diet soda. Before I get into this, I got to ask a question here. Let me get the man's name right because I hate to bash somebody I don't know, but I'm getting ready to. Travis Stevens White. Like I said, don't know him. Maybe it's a great group. But how naive is this guy? How naive is this guy? He's talking about facts. And I'm not disputing his facts, 10 to 40 million people. Matter of fact, I think he's probably right. He's probably on the high end. But he's worried about facts and electoral consequences. What electoral consequences did Biden have from hiding in his basement, never campaigning, or even Terry McAuliffe, who was the Democratic chair and a Clinton henchman and former governor of Virginia. God help you on Virginia. He's running again. Even he said that we need to keep Biden in the basement to help him win. I mean, so what electoral consequences has Joe Biden faced all this time? I mean, if you believe the mainstream media, he got the most votes in the history of the president. He was the greatest candidate in the history of presidential politics. So what consequences is he talking about? And as far as electoral colleges and everything else and about the facts, see, I'm saying this guy's talking about facts. Well, Joe Biden already answered that question about facts during his limited appearances in the campaign. You don't believe me? Here is Joe Biden in the flesh talking about how much he values truth and facts. Check it out.
Unity over division. We choose science over fiction. We choose truth over facts. And so, folks,
truth over facts.
If you're interested, join me. I could use that.
So this gentleman from this gun coalition is spouting out facts and saying that Biden's going to face consequences and needs to know what the facts are. Biden just told you, and yeah, that was a bit of a gaffe, but really and truly, it's not about facts. It's about their truth. Because don't they say that about people like me? They say, oh, that's your truth. You know, no, it's simply the truth. But Joe Biden doesn't care about facts. The Democratic Party, as it currently is construed, could care less about facts. I mean, they're saying that it's racist to require someone in Georgia to have a voter ID when we talked about this a couple of days ago, that 73% of African Americans polled are in favor of voter ID. 65%, I think, of Democrats in general are in favor of voter ID. Go back and look at our podcast. One of the ways you can do it is check out America's Voice News. If you hadn't heard of them, America's Voice News, they are a great alternative to the mainstream media. They have they have Roku, Fire Stick, Apple TV. They stream on those channels. They also are on Dish Network Channel 219 and the Pluto channel. You can download free apps on your Android or your iPhone right now. America's Voice News. We don't have a live show on there. We need to get back live on there, but they archive our show on a daily basis. Go to their streaming service, look at the tab that says shows, click on that, and you can find our show there. But I did a Rasmussen poll a couple of days ago that the vast majority of Americans, including 73% of African Americans and like 80% of people of color that are minorities that aren't African Americans, and 65% of Democrats actually believe that voter ID is key to election integrity, yet the Democrats are campaigning on that issue and essentially saying that it's Jim Crow, Jim Crow, Jim Crow, and it's racist to require voter ID. So the Democrats could care less about facts. All they're trying to do is get the power and the money. And it's the same thing with these issues of gun control. We're not going to be able to fight these people with facts. Now, I'm all about facts, and I put them out all the time. And I'm not saying don't argue the facts, but do it to educate yourself and others. Do it to motivate yourself and others. Do it to activate yourself and others. Use facts to your neighbor. But if you think that Chuck Schumer gives one hoot about your facts, you got another thing coming, man. But Biden, like I say, he's already in. Let me get along here a little bit, but it upsets me. And I'm all for organizations like the NRA and everything else. And of course, they've got their problems. I really think you ought to check out BDU. And I'm not just saying that as a sales pitch. Look at what they're doing. They are trying to literally fight for your Second Amendment rights on a daily basis at the grassroots level. But listen to what the NRA said. And this is not a knock on them. Maybe it is. Here, let me listen. We'll play it out. The NRA called the measures that Biden signed today extreme. Duh! They are extreme. Of course, you know what Obama say, clinging to your guns and your Bibles. We are, by the way, experiencing the third Obama administration. That's what we're experiencing. But the NRA called the measures extreme and warned they could require law-abiding citizens to surrender lawful property and push states to expand gun confiscation orders. But this is nothing new. Alan Gottlieb, and I don't know this gentleman either, founder of the group, the Second Amendment Foundation, not knocking him, don't know anything about him, just telling it like it is. Listen to what he said. And I don't disagree with anything that I'm reading. It upsets me that this is the same old tired game. The devil, this is what this gentleman said, the devil will be in the details. True. Our legal team will review them, and we are prepared to file suit if Biden and his administration step over their legal authority. So the devil is in the details. True. But the reality is, ladies and gentlemen, the devil's not just in the detail. The devil's in control. The devil is controlling the Senate, the House, the White House, and it seems like sometimes even SCOTUS. I mean, look at what happened. Voter mod, stopping the squeal, all that. But the devil's in control, man. And I really hate saying, ladies and gentlemen, but we're losing this fight right now. We're losing our Second Amendment rights on a daily basis. What more do you need than you may be a felon tonight? You may go to bed, may have woke up today a free man with no criminal record and go to bed a felon. It's true, man. Let me just tell you, we're losing this fight. And if you think you can negotiate with these progressives, I got another thing coming to you. I tell you this all the time. One of my axioms, progressives cannot be reasoned with. They cannot be dealt with. They cannot be negotiated with. They can only be defeated at the ballot box. That's it, period. And they will always take it to the extreme. Always. And if you give them even a quarter of an inch, they'll take a proverbial mile. They can only be defeated. That's why we got to support people that are in the fight like our show. That's why I'm so grateful for like Big Daddy Unlimited and our other sponsors for being out there in the fight, because we need them now more than ever. Let me check with time. I'm almost out of time. I got to read this last part and then we'll close it out. Gun control groups cheered Biden's actions. Every town for gun safety said that's a anti-gun group. Actions will save lives. How? And begin to make good on President Biden's promise to be the strongest gun safety president in history. In other words, he's going to be the gun grabber of all time. March for Our Lives call the move's welcome pivot toward human-centered policies, unless you're trying to defend yourself, that will create a safer society. So if we're disarmed, if law-abiding people are disarmed, we're going to be safer. Nonsense. But continue to call on Biden to appoint a cabinet-level gun control czar and pursue more aggressive gun policies. So I talked about this a little bit yesterday. Does that mean that Paco is back? Beto O'Rourke is back? He could be the gun czar, and I think it should be Trump. But remember what Beto O'Rourke said during the 2020 primaries, and listen to the cheer he got from the Democrats when he said this.
Hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15, your AK-47. We're not going to allow it to be used against...
They're going to take them. Take them at their word. Take these progressives at their word. You don't have to guess where they're come from. What is it going to take for people? And I'm not talking about just conservatives or Trump supporters. There are millions of Americans who are buying guns right now of every walk of life. What is it going to take for you to come out, for our country to come out of its long slumber? I maintain that we've been basically on a coast in a slumber since World War II. Been living fat and happy, and I like that. I'm glad. But let me tell you, we got to man the political ramparts, because if we don't, we're going to have to man the real ones again, and that would be a dadgum shame, ladies and gentlemen. What is it going to take for Americans of all political stripes to actually wake up to what's happening? I'll say it again and we'll close the show. My sole goal, really, politically, is to stop the progressive takeover of this great nation. I hope you've enjoyed the show today as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. Go to our sponsors, check them out. I'll pray for your family. You pray for mine. I hope we all have a great weekend, including myself. Wind on one. Let's pray for this great nation, because, boy, she needs it, deserves it, if there ever was a time. But as I say each and every day, from my heart, from my family to yours, have a blessed day.